My name is Clara Towson, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
I am Francisca George, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Susan Leemans and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom. Yeah.
My name is Zainab Sammaz and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hey guys, my name is Sasha Vickery and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hi, my name is Lloyd Harris and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Jan Faria and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Yes.
Take one. Well done.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Paolini and I'm a friend of the show.
Wow, Jasmine, you got it in one time.
Ready? Play.
Well, hello there, and welcome to WTA Weekly. And, well, we've got a blockbuster week to wrap up on. So who better than to be joined by the founder, the glorious leader of Talking Tennis himself, armed with a bottle of, surprisingly, water. It's John Silk. John, how you doing?
Good. Yes. Thank you, Nick, for that wonderful introduction. Yes. Surprisingly, today it is water. Often there are other things that are in bottles that are often consumed by myself, including quite a few yesterday. But I was kind of celebrating, and I wasn't celebrating the achievement of a sunshine double by a tennis player. I did a half marathon in the Netherlands yesterday.
Ah, did you do a good time for you?
Not really, no. But I didn't feel great. So for me, no. But I think the average human will be okay with it. But 2 hours 15. But it's my slowest half marathon ever. But it's my first one in about 5 years. And I don't think I'm going to be getting much faster as every year ticks by.
You never know. You never know.
You never know. But it takes a lot of training and dedication. And I can't be bothered with that anymore.
I can't be bothered. Just want to run for fun.
Yeah.
You could say that there's been more of a marathon that's happened over these last sort of month or so. We'll get to it, and there we go. Arina Sabalenka has added her name to a very short list of WTA players who have won the Sunshine Double. Harder than a marathon, maybe, but yeah. Other people have done it before her: Steffi Graf, Kim Clijsters, Victoria Azarenka, Iga Swiatek, and she's now Arina Sabalenka. Going through two of her toughest rivals to do it. But I have to say that I was impressed with her in Miami, and after hyping her up so much after Indian Wells, I think that she very much lived up to that all the way up until the Coco Gauff match. How are you seeing Arina Sabalenka this tournament, John?
Listen, I think we had a poll, didn't we, in our YouTube chat about a week ago, something like that. And it was like, who's winning the tournament? Most people, and I think you included, did go for Sabalenka. I went for Rybakina. Because I just thought that the conditions might suit her a little bit better than Indian Wells. I know she's a previous winner in Indian Wells, but I also thought that in the last half a dozen matches between these two, she's had the edge over Arina as a whole, but not in Indian Wells. But we know just how close that match was. What I probably didn't factor in, though, was something I started to factor in as that match got underway, was actually the most dangerous version of Arina Sabalenka is one that is motivated. And I think she's been motivated nonstop for pretty much all of her career, but in particular, since she got over the line in Australia, she wasn't someone who was going to fade away. Sometimes people achieve that lifelong goal and then they gradually fade into the background, either because of age or injury. And I've got Dominic Thiem at the top of my head when I'm thinking about this, but there are others as well that do the same. Or maybe even Madison Keys to such an extent, because Madison was chasing it for probably more than a decade. When she does finally get over the line, it's like, you know what? Life is good. If I win another slam, great. If I don't, it's fine. Arina was at that age and had that motivation to just kick on. And I also think that her losses to Rybakina in the previous 2 or 3 events, times that they'd met, WTA Finals, Australian Open, she did have chances to win both of those matches, or at least go to a third set in the WTA Finals, and none more than better chance than winning another Grand Slam by being up a break in the deciding set and letting that slip. I actually thought that she took that a little bit mentally into that Indian Wells final. which is why it was such a mammoth effort for her to get over the line. But having got that done, she then goes into this match in Miami feeling much better about her chances. And I saw it pretty much from the first ball to the last. And I think that match, in a way, sort of defines sort of the end sort of part of her Sunshine Double, as in, like, you know, I think it should put it like this. What I'm trying to say is, in a nutshell, if she loses the Indian Wells final, I'm not sure she wins, certainly not in the fashion that she did win that semi-final against Rebecca, and perhaps even the final against Coco.
Yeah. I think those were two really big matches that she had towards the end of that tournament. First against Rebecca and then against Coco. Rebecca, that first set was super competitive. The second was not. She really took hold of that match.
Yeah.
And I was impressed by what she managed to do there, because Rebecca did give us some resistance, or tried to. And then you get to the final, and I thought it was interesting that when she played Coco, like she does what she does against Coco. She has a great first set, and then Coco makes it difficult in the second. And then as that set went on, I was like, I think Coco might steal this one. She's kind of building for something here, and she does.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've seen this before with Arena and Coco in finals, where this is where Sabalenka goes off the rails. Sabalenka, despite the fact Coco had game points, breaks in the opening game of the set, and that sets her up to win the match. Like, she gets herself another break right at the end, but it didn't feel like it was in doubt that she was going to take that match from there on.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas other finals she's played against Coco at the US Open and Roland Garros, it felt like Coco was the one. Once she broke, she was in control. Like, there was something about Arena's mental state that was very different to this. Now, maybe it's because this wasn't a Grand Slam final, but I think it's more likely that Arena, after that win in Indian Wells, is just on such a confidence high that it was going to take a lot to shake her. She knew she was in for against Coco. I think this head-to-head that they've got is now 7-6, very close, and she knew what she was in for. She's a bit more prepared for having to fight for every point against her. And yeah, I think that's what got it for her in the end. So that impressed me about that match in the final, which is what you were kind of alluding to. I don't know which match you were talking, the Rebecca match or the Coco Gauff match in your earlier answer, John, when you were kind of going through things. But this is a sign to me that Arena Sabalenka is starting even more so than before, because it's not like she couldn't, but even more so handling the occasion better. We'll see what happens when we get to a Grand Slam, but it's the right sort of direction.
I think I just started coming on a few things you've raised there. First of all, I said at the end of the second set in the live stream that basically Arena's just got to shrug off the mental jolt of losing that second set and just continue. Because if she continues and she believes she's winning this match, because what I'd seen up until that point was a player that was the better player across most of the match. Yes, Coco took her opportunity excellently, and we have seen momentum shifts as a result in those other finals you highlighted in Roland Garros and also the US Open of 2023. And we have seen maybe sometimes a mental jolt or a real jolt in a big final can shake Arena off her path. But actually, I felt as though the margin was a bit greater, and I think the conditions were a little bit different. I think of Indian Wells 2025 when she wins the first set and ends up losing the match against Mira Andreeva. I think about the US Open and French Open finals that we just touched upon, of how she wins the first set, I think, in both of those finals, but ultimately gets jolted perhaps by the wind as well, blowing her off her path in the French Open final last year. I didn't get that feeling. However, you are right to highlight that, that could have been the momentum shift. What was so important, and Coco mentioned it in her post-match press conference, was being up in that service game and somehow getting broken in that service game. And that pretty much did for the match. I mean, Sabalenka in the first set, I don't think she had to face any break points. In the second set, she was mostly comfortable on her serve and was often pressuring the Coco serve, but not always breaking. She got 2 breaks in the first set, and I think there was also a long hold from Coco, 8-9 minutes, something like that. So if she just believes, she's fine, and that turned out to be the case in that third set.
Yeah. And I think Sabalenka definitely showed a bit more belief compared to previous Grand Slam finals that she's played against Coco Gauff. And I think she's showing a bit more belief generally, possibly. And I think it's because of the way she won Indian Wells. I'm going to keep harping on about that until I start turning out to be wrong with that deciding set tiebreak in a final. I think looking ahead for Arena a little bit before we kind of compare it, because this has been a super impressive month for her. But now we're coming onto a surface in clay where her history is a bit more mixed. She's a multiple Madrid Open champion. She's been to the final of Rome. She's been to the final of Roland Garros. She's somehow not won Stuttgart despite having conditions that suit her. Like she's lost in 2021, 2022, 2025. Did she lose in 2023 as well?
Sabalenka in Stuttgart, 23, don't remember, but 24.
Don't remember. I know Iga won that year, but that's not.
I think she beat Iga did she beat Sabalenka in the final? I think she
did, because I think Sabalenka lost to when he won to Barty.
I was in Barcelona that day, that final. I remember that. Swiatek, Stuttgart 2024. Yeah, and there was also a match. Did she have a match with Ons Jabeur in that run, Swiatek? Maybe a semi-final, but Ons Jabeur got injured.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're coming. So I hear then, like Stuttgart, she's multiple finalist of. Rome, she's got to the final once. Roland Garros, multiple Madrid Open champion. So she's almost but not quite on the surface compared to some of her rivals, particularly Iga Swiatek historically. Coco Gauff, you could say as well. Ostapenko was doing Ostapenko things in Stuttgart. We're not going to count that. Where do you see maybe Sabalenka with a bit more belief coming into this clay season? Is this something that we could see her carrying on now?
I'm showing this question that I posted, I think it was yesterday, but actually it was going through my mind on Saturday night in the wake of that final. I think clay is a real leveler between these four, because probably on a hard court right now, you would have Sabalenka slightly ahead of Rybakina, and Rybakina some distance ahead of the other two, despite Coco's heroics last week. And there was a lot of heroics, well, I'm sure we'll come to that in a moment. So those two have put a bit of a distance between them and the rest of the field on a hard court in the first 3 months of the year. Grass, I think you probably lose Coco from this debate. I don't see her winning Wimbledon this year. It's at least based on the grass court form that she's shown throughout her career, with the exception of probably that breakout year in 2019. And so there's gaps and all sorts. But I find clay is the one that bunches them up again, because you've got probably the most out of form of the four is the one with the most pedigree, Iga Swiatek. And if you push me into a corner right now, I would put Iga still as the marginal favorite. But I can understand there's a million reasons not to, in terms of her form, and didn't make the French Open final last year, and so on and so forth. The form players are the ones that are probably losing a little bit on this surface, in terms of that neither's won the French Open, and in Rybakina's case, I don't think she's even made a semi-final. Also, the number of tournaments that winning on other surfaces, particularly on the hard court, are greater than on the clay. Coco, of course, then gets elevated on this surface to being someone who probably moves as well as anyone bar Iga Swiatek on the tour, and probably has more pedigree on this surface, won the French Open last year, and so on and so forth. Of course, regarding what Matthew says here, that if he can win Wimbledon, why not? Absolutely. But you wouldn't go into that grass court season at the beginning of last season going, I think Iga's winning Wimbledon. If you did, then hats off to you. But I don't think there was any evidence that suggested she was going to win Wimbledon. She ends up proving that wrong, of course, and going on to take the title. And if Coco does the same, great. I just don't see grass being the leveler that clay is right now, in terms of the underdogs or the people that are slipping behind suddenly go up again, and the ones that were ahead just drop off slightly.
Yeah. It is a lot more even on paper. So, like you say, like Sabalenka loses a lot of her advantage on clay. Coco gets elevated. Iga, this is her best surface, and if she starts feeling good, watch out everybody else.
And Iga's results at Wimbledon, although were not as stellar as they were on the clay, were still there. I mean, she got to a quarterfinals, did she, in 23, was it?
Yeah.
Junior Wimbledon champion as well. Coco doesn't even have any of that. I mean, last year she goes out first round. Year before that, she makes the round of 16. Year before that, I think first round as well, wasn't it? 2023? To
20,
Kenin.
Something like that. I think she's made the fourth round at Wimbledon 3 times and never got further.
Right.
So
which, if you compare it to the everywhere else, just about it's nothing for her. She's making, she's won 2 of the other 4 slams. She's been in a semi-final in Australia as well. So yeah, and she's not going out early at the other slams either. Not to the best of my knowledge, not off the top of my head at the US or she's also been in a French Open final as well. So the pedigree for her at the other 3 slams is streets ahead of where it is at Wimbledon.
Yeah. Going back to clay.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, and going back to Sabalenka, and I think this is where this increased belief about Sabalenka might make a difference, and we might see more success from her on the surface. I don't know if that means she's winning the French or she's winning Rome or something like that. I think she's going to be heavy favourite for Madrid. I don't see anyone beating her in Madrid, really.
I think she's favourite right now, but I'm not sure I'd go as far as heavy, and I'd have to see how the next 2 weeks on the clay goes for some of her rivals.
I'm just basing it on the fact that she's made the Madrid final for the last 4 years.
Sure.
No, not 4 years. Like 4 of the last 5. 4 of the last 5. So she.
I wouldn't be surprised if they split the tournaments. By the way, I wouldn't be surprised if we get something like Sabalenka winning Madrid, Coco winning Rome, Rybakina winning Stuttgart, and Iga winning the French. Something. I mean,
that would be an epic clay season. And this is the thing: is that what we're going into is this going to be a massive reset and a halter on Sabalenka's run? Maybe, maybe not. I'm leaning towards Sabalenka picking up Madrid and making a final at least of one of the others. Potentially the French. It depends on the draw. I think she'd probably want to avoid having Iga in her half, let's say. Yeah, we'll see where that goes. I just wanted to throw that out there as we start looking ahead to clay. What role Sabalenka plays in that, and as you rightly pointed out, really that surface brings the other 3 into the mix. Let's talk about Coco. As you say, like clay really brings her into the mix, and I think her form's kind of ticking up at the right time. Semi-finals in Dubai, loses an epic with Svitolina that she could have won. Indian Wells was an outlier because she had this nerve problem that meant she had to pull out against Alex Ayala. And then we're back to Miami, and she really didn't look like not making the final this tournament. After writing her off for injury, she just turns up, beats everybody, apart, and pushes Sabalenka in the final, at least for a set. Like that second set was a really, really good performance from Coco. And she's starting to do what she does best, which is scrap out wins, force everyone to beat her. Really looks like she's hitting confidently on both sides, as confident as she can with what she's got. And Coco is definitely a confidence player. And so if that goes up and down, her form will go up and down. If we're seeing an uptick in form of her going into clay, I think she'll be very, very dangerous. But yeah, what's impressed you about Coco in Miami, John?
I actually draw a line in the sand for her year. I go back to the win she had over Elise Mertens during that Middle East swing that you just touched upon. I saw her manage to dig deep in that match and come through it, and I think she's not looked back since. I think you rightly highlight the 2 losses she had in that tournament, but also then in Indian Wells. But there are mitigating circumstances. That match with Svitolina, arguably the match of the year. We'll have that debate some other time, but easily could go either way. She's in the final, and who knows what happens against Pegula. And also, most importantly, she's playing great tennis again. Then Indian Wells, she has the arm injury. I think it's very difficult to say ifs, buts, and maybes, but given how Coco had dismantled Alex Ayala in the Middle East, I think it was 0-2, you would imagine that she probably does. If she's 100% physically, I imagine she comes back to win that match one way or another. But anyway, that doesn't matter. What does matter is the form that she's shown on the court. Here, she came up against a familiar foe in the form of Cocciaretto, who beat her just preceding that run that she had, where I told her that that turning point, in my opinion, against Elise Mertens, where she started to believe again. But and she had a problem against Cocciaretto because she obviously lost the first set. I think she might even have been down a break in the third, because I did tune into that one about halfway through, thinking we might get an upset of sorts. And then again, didn't look back in so many respects. I think the level that she produced against Bencic, despite losing that second set 6-1, was arguably her best level of the year. I know she demolishes Mukova in the semifinals, but she's got this thing over Mukova, and I think it is a matchup thing that might eat into Carolina's confidence as well. But I think it is also a matchup thing, that there's not this ability that Mukova can have to move someone around the court, i.e., for example, a Rybakina or a Sabalenka, who she's beaten in big matches before. Doesn't bother Coco in the slightest. You can bring me forward, you can push me back, you can push me from one side to the next, and I'm going to keep getting that ball back, and I'm going to hit it back with interest. So that doesn't bother, and I think that matchup is not great for Carolina. Hence, she's 6-0, I think, in it, and only won one set, and that was in the US or Australian Open. I forget which one. One of the recent slams, anyway, they met, and Mukova got a set, and also beat Castella, one of the form players of the year in so many respects. So, yeah, huge step forward the last 6 weeks, and possibly none more so than this run to the final. I think she'll be disappointed with how that third set began and all the rest of it, but I think she can put this to one side a lot quicker and a lot easier than she can, for example, her earlier losses in the year to the aforementioned Cocciaretto, but also, who did she lose to? Was it Svitolina in the Australian Open? I'm just trying to remember who she lost to now.
Yeah, it was Svitolina. It was pretty bad.
Yeah, exactly. Straight sets, etc. So, yeah, but this is, since that Mertens match, I've seen a different Coco, and I see that, continuing into the clay court season, where, as I said a few months ago, you can make a case for all four of those players that I recently shared on the screen for being the favorite, and you can make a case for them not winning the title. Simple as that.
Yeah, simple as that. I think that Mertens match you mentioned, that is the moment. I would agree with you. That's where we really saw her start to believe. That's and we're seeing that belief continue, and I think that belief will grow when she gets onto the clay, which I don't think she's playing till Madrid. I don't think she's playing Stuttgart.
She's not playing Stuttgart. Oh, okay.
I don't think she is.
Sure. I can check.
With that, I think she's obviously Madrid finalist. She's Rome finalist, won Roland Garros. And I actually think she's been, over the last few years, the second best player on the surface after Iga Swiatek. So
I've got her on the player list on the WTA website for Stuttgart.
Okay, I misread something.
But that might not be accurate. She might have pulled out since.
I haven't seen her pull out, so I've just missed her name when I was looking through the entry list. So Stuttgart's probably where we'll see her there, and that's a different kind of challenge for clay anyway. I know she never does Charleston, which is probably why what I was thinking of. But yeah, Coco coming back, for me, that clay's going to elevate things for her, but her run in Miami should also give her a lot of confidence for when they get back onto hard courts for the North American swing, which we are a little bit too far out from looking at in too much detail with that one. But yeah, great result from Coco, and the crowd cheering her on, getting quite involved in that match with Sabalenka as well, which is exciting. So do you have any more thoughts on Coco at the moment, John?
Not really. She's back, and I'm sure she's ready to roll, and she will play Stuttgart. Even if she had pulled out, obviously she hasn't, but I do think the clay court season, possibly it's more applicable to the men with 5 sets at the French, but I think it's applicable to both, is trying to build the momentum for the right time, as in peaking at the French Open. And it is tricky because of just how grueling that surface can be. So I wonder if one or two players do skip an early clay court tournament and then build up throughout. I heard Carlos Alcaraz's coach, for example, say exactly that if they'd gone deep in Miami, that they would have pulled out of Monte Carlo, which I think is the same week as Stuttgart. But in the end, they might skip Rome or whatever, just because of how tough this period of the season is. But yeah, I think if you're feeling great, you play Stuttgart and see how it goes from there.
Yeah, play Stuttgart, see how it goes. And I mean, obviously, for the WTA is a very different challenge in that they can build some form, but they don't start playing on anything like French Open clay until they get to Rome or the tournament the week before in Strasbourg, because it's all altitude clay or indoor clay. So that's where their challenge is going to be. So it's about building confidence before they really get going on what the proper slow clay is.
I wonder if anyone's won Stuttgart, for example, and then gone on to win the French Open since 23. Okay, it's only a 3-year period, but if you think back to last year, Ostapenko, and the year before Rybakina, neither player that year, for example, got to the semis. It's not really a huge indicator in the same way that that Rome is, for example.
No, I would agree with that. I don't think even Madrid is that great an indicator in some ways, but we'll see with that. Rybakina. Let's talk about Rybakina. We've mentioned her a few times. Obviously, Matthew saying earlier that, hoping to see her make a deep run at RG. We can talk about her on clay in a minute, but I did wonder whether we'd see her in the Miami semifinals. I thought maybe she'd have a bit of a dip. Nope, she's cracked on. And this is a version of Rybakina that we've kind of been looking for, where she is performing consistently now. Really good level on the whole throughout the whole tournament. So we can see, taking apart Marta Kostyuk, who is someone who's given her trouble before, seeing off a spirited start from Jessica Pegula in that quarterfinal. I thought, obviously, Rybakina's getting a good momentum, and she's won the last 3 times they've played, but Pegula did start really well in that match. And
I think Rybakina had to fend off some break points at the beginning of the second set as well. So you thought, oh, here we go.
Yeah. Yeah, really thought Pegula might be winning that match, and then Rybakina sort of stays the ship and wins it. And then we've got that match with Arena in the semis, which, again, first set, break for Arena. Rybakina breaks back, loses on a break at the end of the set, goes double break down, gets one of the breaks back, and just keeps fighting. There's definitely a sense of Rybakina being a bit more motivated, a bit more consistent, and is able to put in the yards, because over the last few years, she's been injured fairly regularly. So on the whole, still very positive for Rybakina in the wake of that Australian Open title, and clearly still putting herself as clear, one of the clear favourites for everything that she plays, and currently still making this a 2-person rivalry with Arina Sabalenka at the very, very top.
Yeah, I think the word you've touched on a couple of times, I think, which is huge with her, is consistency, because that is not a word that we'd have used with Elena Rybakina. I think I called her the most difficult player to predict on the tour about 6 months ago, something like that, especially going into the US Open, where she's often not performed before, but there's not really a lot of reasons why she shouldn't perform there. And then, of course, she just really post-US Open, during that swing when she needed to get the wins to make the WTA finals, from that moment onwards, and really right up till today, I think she's probably lost 3 or 4 matches in that spell, something like that. She probably played Brisbane, I guess, and she must have lost a match there pre-Australian Open.
Lost to Mukova in 3.
There you go. Yeah. So, so she loses Mukova there, but I think that's the only loss that she had. That's the only other person. So her and Sabalenka are the only 2 players to beat her, probably since the US.
Mboko beat her in Doha.
And Doha, of course she did. Yes.
3.
Yes. But still, the form has been there. So it's probably 4 losses in 30+ matches. I remember doing a quick bit on a scrap bit of paper the other day to see who the most formed players were in the world right now, and I think it was Sabalenka marginally ahead of, in terms of win percentage, marginally ahead of Rybakina, followed by Pegula, and so on and so forth. So yeah, and that's just not a word that we would have used 6 months. I think I said I just don't know which Rybakina is, because she could win the tournament or go out first round, and it's so difficult to know which one of those 2 is going to turn up. Whereas now, going into Stuttgart is probably a tournament where she would fancy her chances more than perhaps at the other 3, but particularly probably Rome and the French, bearing in mind, well, she's won Rome, I know, but I know that you're quick to point out that maybe Iga wasn't at her 100% physically in the semi-final. Was it when she beat Iga? Quarters, okay. And then it was a super rainy final, and maybe got a decent draw as well for that. So yeah, but yeah, so she goes into this part of the season. She's probably on my list the 4th favorite right now for the French Open, but probably going into Stuttgart, she's second or third because of her pedigree there, having won the tournament in 24, etc. And yeah, consistency. That's the name of the game. And it's a side of Rebecca that we were sort of just waiting to kick on from that Wimbledon win of 2022. And I guess she did in the form and the fact that she got to the final of the Australian Open in 23 and wins Indian Wells that same year. But certainly since then, we haven't quite seen this level of consistency.
Yeah, and she needs to keep maintaining that. Obviously, I think that's the one thing I would say is we've got this sort of question mark is how long can she do this for? Like, is her body going to allow her to do that? Because if she is consistently like this through the year, then this could be the best year she's ever had in her career. Obviously, she's already won a slam, so it's already up there, but it's tracking pretty well in that respect. Only Wimbledon 22 would match that. And really, Wimbledon was the only highlight of that 2022 season for her. But if she continues through, then we're kind of seeing the version of Elena Rybakina that we've wanted to see, that we've been thinking exists, that we've wanted to see for the sort of last 3 years, since she really started she first had like amazing start like 2023 season with winning Indian Wells, good clay results, finalists in Australia, and then it all tails off from the French Open onwards. And yeah, I'm interested to see whether that continues throughout the year, because I think it'd be good for Elena Rybakina's career and for her reputation, how we see her, and for us as well as fans, because this means more battles with Arina Sabalenka, maybe finally a battle with Coco Gauff, and just another name that we can talk about and get excited about winning, in addition to these other names. So yeah, really up for seeing what Rybakina can do. I think things are steering us in a direction of the fourth player of this top four. Normally we kind of do the full semi-finals. I think you've kind of said everything that needs to be said about Karolina Muchova's performance, like pretty good start to the year. Hopefully this Coco loss doesn't knock her confidence. It shouldn't do.
It's great that she's in the conversation now as well, like conversations for going deep and winning tournaments, because I think she's probably in the next, Karolina Muchova is probably in that next group. Like we've got that Elite Four on the screen right now, but the next group aren't far behind, and you could make a case for her heading that next group as long as she stays fit. So yeah, and there's Milo Andreeva to come into the equation here, and others as well who've got good results on the clay. But yeah, Iga Swiatek, I've got a question for you, and then I'll address it myself. Are you surprised to see her on this poll? Because it's a pretty big poll, 1,600 votes, I think, plus, and that's in less than 24 hours, so it might well hit the 2,000 mark. So it's a pretty big sample size. And I think it's just so close. But I have her as, just because of the pedigree. If you said to me, John, back someone to win the French Open, it would be her right now, but that could change from week to week over the next 6 weeks or so.
Yeah. So are you asking me whether I'm surprised with
to see that she's at 19% and Arena's at 33, for example, and so she's actually because of the number of votes. I just refreshed it to see if it had changed at all, and it hasn't. So, are you surprised to see that she'll probably end up being fourth on this poll?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
But not because of her, because of how sort of we tennis fans see things. At the moment, we're seeing short-term form. We're seeing her at a bit of a confidence low. We've seen similar things last year where she didn't end up winning the French Open, and she was coming in with similar kind of questions, similar kind of form past the hard court season. Obviously, she's got a lot more of opportunity to kind of rescue things on the clay. So I think people are seeing this and going, Iga's not herself. Iga's not this force that we've been used to seeing her in sort of the last few years. And there's this lack of confidence in her from a viewer perspective. So, and I would say Iga's stock is probably the lowest it's been since before she started that winning streak in 2022, when she was seen as one of the field, one of a number of good players who were trying to challenge Ash Barty.
You would say it's slightly lower than it was going into, say, the grass court season last year? Or significantly lower?
I'd say it's lower.
Yeah, fair enough.
I'd say it's lower. I mean, it's different, obviously. Like by that point, she hadn't won a title in over a year, but also we'd had seen this sort of green shoots of recovery with that win against Rybakina in the French, with getting to the semis and doing which some people didn't think she would there, and holding her own well against Sabalenka, maybe being a bit unfortunate that match was played under a roof rather than outside. Who knows what have happened in that situation. But yeah, I think with Iga right now, I think she's without a coach. She's clearly, whatever direction she's in at work, she's putting out a lot of negative sound bites at the moment. I know you've done a video on the parting with win for set. I am not surprised.
No.
To be honest, it clearly wasn't working as well as hoped, despite maybe going in directions a lot of people wanted it to for Iga from like external observers. It wasn't. Iga was struggling to execute whatever they were trying to do for whatever reason. So no surprise to me there. But it's Iga, it's clay, it's a reset. If she feels good, she wins. The trouble is you have no measure of whether she feels good or not until she gets results. So at this point, I am not surprised that the wider tennis public is putting her at 19% fourth favourite. I agree with you though, John. I don't think she is the fourth favourite for the French Open. I think she is always going to be. It's going to be a lot. It's going to take a lot to pry that favourite tag from Roland Garros away from her. Even look at the great French Open champion Justine Henin from 20 years ago, and she won 4 French Opens. She won 3 in a row, but there were seasons where she was going out first round at the French. Okay. And she was seen as one of a number of people who could win it. Like, we were waiting for people like Clijsters to win it. Would Serena win it again? There were a lot of contenders at a very strong group of players at the top of the WTA at that time. And yet you would have struggled to pull that favourite tag away from Justine Henin, no matter what her form was, no matter what everyone else was doing. I think Iga's in a similar vein. I don't think it's silly to compare these two players. They have very similar records on the surface, on clay in particular, and then trying to pick up what they could on every other surface. So yeah, I think it's a wait and see with Iga. She's on a down. She'll be back up. How quick that is, I don't know. But because there's that big unknown and we know how good she can be, I'm with you that she's first or second favourite for Roland Garros.
Oh, just one thing. Just before we move on, is what about Sabalenka and this legendary sort of status question that I've sort of highlighted in the.
I thought we were going to do that at the end. So.
Oh, okay. No, we can do that at the end. We can do that at the end. You're the boss.
We'll do it at the end.
We'll come back to the end. Stay tuned.
Yeah.
Or if you're watching this on back and you're already getting bored of us, you can fast forward to the end. But if you're watching live,
you've got to have something to kind of tease people to keep watching, because we are content creators and we know how this works, more or less. Most of this channel is just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. We've got, I guess, for me, in terms of we've done our top 4 check-in, we've obviously done our semi-finalist check-in. Are there any other stories from Miami that you want to highlight, John? Any other players that sort of caught your eye?
Not really. I was just scrolling down the rankings to try and imagine who. Just after I said that, I'd probably put Muchova maybe at the top of the next batch of players for the clay court season to keep an eye on as potential winners of either RG or other titles. I did start to check myself and go, would I put Muchova ahead of Pegula right now? I would. Would I put her on this surface? If it was on hard court or grass, maybe not. Although Muchova's decent on the grass as well. But Muchova's just about staying healthy. Mino Andreeva, I think, is someone to keep an eye on because she's on the cusp of going out of the top 10. And I think it's been about a year of inconsistent results from her. I'm thinking RG semi-final, was it to Boisson? No, sorry, quarterfinal loss to Boisson, wasn't it? Yeah. And there was obvious frustration from her in that match, and we have seen that frustration spill over quite a few times since then. I know she had another loss, was it to Mboko, wasn't it, in Miami? But I think she may have been physically fading away in that, which is unusual for her. So there might have been some mitigating circumstances there. But I saw her have a match point against Mboko as well and lose in the Middle East ahead of the Sunshine Double. So then we saw the way she was frustrated in the loss. Quite spectacular frustration, if that makes sense, in her reaction to the loss to, I think it was Siniakova, wasn't it, in Indian Wells. So that's something to just keep an eye on to see if she can get things going again as she gets the dirt under her shoes. And Paolini as well is someone who's just really out of form this year and maybe needs a change of surface to get going again. But yes, so I might have Muka. I think you could make a case for Paolini. You could make a case for Mida. But where are we at with Mboko on the clay? I don't really know what her clay
is. I think she impressed at the French last year. She got to the third round and lost to Jing Qinwen.
Okay.
In a tough match, tough straight setter. I think she's a clean hitter. So regardless of whether clay neutralizes her power, it still works really well for her. I think her movement's still pretty good. But I think, it's the surface that, outside of like clay and grass is the two that we're seeing. We're not entirely sure where to read her on, other than on paper, she should still be really good wherever she goes.
Sure.
I think I've been enjoying the fact that Mboko and Andreeva have now had 3 matches against each other. And one cracker and the other 2, one of them was physically compromised and they were taking it in turns. And they are definitely showing that they are probably long-term top 10 players, injury permitting, for them. I'm really excited to see what they do, especially with the contrast of styles that they bring. It does seem to me at the moment, actually, that there's quite a few, more than usual, I'd say. Like, there seems to be a pack of these really young WTA players that are really in the mix and challenging at the moment, particularly Andreeva and Mboko. But you've got Jovic, who's now top 16. That's crazy.
Yeah, very high. Yeah,
top 16 is great. You've got a few others like Maya Joints clinging onto seedings and rankings. You've got Valentova is determinedly making her way forward. Lily Tagger, everyone's talking about. She's not far from the top 100 debut.
As well. Belek seems to have gone off a little. I know she's had a few injuries as well post winning that tournament in the was it Middle East? Was it she won a tournament recently? Belek.
Yes, Belek. Yes.
Yeah.
Belek's kind of come back on the radar again.
Maybe I don't know what's Boisson's health like. Louis Boisson. I don't know where she's at.
Physically. Not played very much. So,
no. But of course, it is the French Open, which is where she kind of made her name. So maybe she can hopefully get fit again and play, get some matches under her belt, and who knows, pull off some more heroics. I do see Boisson as someone who will probably reappear during the clay court season and then disappear again. And fingers crossed she can just stay healthy. But I'm not sure that she'll be getting to the semi-finals of the US Open, for example, anytime soon.
No, I think she's clearly a clay specialist.
Yeah,
it's fine.
That's what I'm saying.
People are. But yeah, where are you at on kind of the teen talent or the young talents kind of next on the WTA tour? Because now Coco Gauff's turned 22. She's kind of moving from young player to prime player.
Sure.
So kind of the shadow she casts over those in that sort of age bracket of 21 and under is kind of gone now. So where are you at with the talent that you're seeing coming through and joining the top of the game?
For me, it's Mboko that heads the list. It would have been different 6 to 12 months ago before her breakout, for example, in Canada, but also where Mira Andreeva was at. She was the next one to sort of maybe get into the top 5, for example, in the world, just purely because of where she was at in the rankings and also where she was at in terms of, her achievements of going deep in slams, for example. But we have seen a wobble from her. I'm sure it'll only be temporary, but I don't know how temporary it will be, if that makes sense. I don't know if it's just a few months or if it'll carry on, for example, throughout the clay court season into the grass. Where you would put Mira ahead of, at least for now, of Victoria is that topic that we just had highlighted. She is good on all 3 surfaces. She's proven it already at her early stages of her career that she can get good results on all 3 surfaces, whereas maybe we still need to see how Mboko does during this clay court season. But the next taxi off the rank for me is Mboko. Jovic, interestingly, is also having a little, very minute wobble right now, but I saw some issues with her in a third set. Who did she lose to? Was it the Colombian, wasn't it? Osorio, maybe in Indian Wells, I think it was. And I could see, I think she might have had it. She was either up a break or she maybe had a match point or something like that in the second set. And you could see that, oh dear, the wheels have really come off. And I'm pretty sure she's losing this match. She had to really go a break or even a double breakdown in the third set of that match to then finally relax again. I think she got one of the breaks back, but ultimately lost. And I could see that the confidence was gone from her in that match. Now, I'm pretty sure every single tennis player on the planet has had a loss like that. So it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see how she reacts to that in the coming weeks. But yeah, for me, top of the list. Mboko doesn't really have any clear weaknesses. I don't see someone going, well, you can get at her second serve, or at least for now, the mental frailties that I think sometimes afflict the other players, that she's not really been through that yet. She had some physical issues that compromised at the beginning of the US Open, and also I think it was Krejcikova who she lost in the opening round there. But there were, asterisks behind that loss. And yeah, as long as she stays healthy, for me, she's just gone ahead of Mino Andreeva in terms of, if you said to me which one of these players is going to make it to number one, or maybe let's just bring it down a notch, which one of these players that we've just highlighted in the last 10 minutes or so, 5 minutes or so, would you back most likely to win a slam? It would be her right now.
Yeah. Right now, yeah, in the short term, it's Mboko. I think Andreeva, we're seeing her making top 10 with her base game. And it's going to be interesting when it evolves and gets added to what she can do. But that's a developmental thing. I mean, she'll always be a factor on the clay and grass as well. I think that's where she'll come into her own on natural surfaces in ways that other players don't. But yeah, Mboko is going to be the one that the one that's kind of, you're kind of backing to see what's going to happen. I think for her, the step forward is, how does she fare against Sabalenka or Rybakina? Well, but how is she going to fare against Sabalenka? That she's run into her a couple of times now, and she's still got to figure out how to beat her now. Once she does that, game on. Speaking of Sabalenka, I think, maybe the slight tangent aside before we kind of, just to wrap up all the other stories from Miami, this is the ultimate story, which is legend rankings. So what were you going to ask about this, John?
Yeah, where we at? I mean, first of all, I think we need to define what makes a legend, because I think we might well differ on that. But yeah, first of all, do you think she's reached legendary status? And if she has, why? Or if she hasn't, why not?
Oh, she has. I mean, she has to have. I think you're right. I think you can become a legend in tennis for various reasons, for many different reasons. Like Goran Ivanisevic won one Grand Slam, but he won it after many years of trying, when he fell to world 125 in a very tough circumstance. Jelena Ostapenko is a legend for somehow winning the French Open at 20 and not improving at all since. But somehow managing to turn.
I would probably say they're legendary stories. That's
what I mean. Like, legendary players you don't have the story without the player. So legends can be made for different reasons. If you're talking about greats, that's a different thing. And I would say, yes, Aryna Sabalenka is a great. And here's why. She's been world number one for a full couple of years. She's won 4 Grand Slams. I would say you are in the running for great status if you win 3. She's now added the Sunshine Double to that, which very few players have done. And all the players that I mentioned at the top of the show, I would call greats. I know Victoria Azarenka's only won the 2 slams, but when you look at that 2012 season she had and how she was pushing Serena Williams, and maybe there's a little bit of a what if with her. But you got Kim Kleiss in there, who's won 4 and was clearly an elite group of players with Enan and the Williams sisters and a few others at the time. I think Sabalenka is. I think she's going to cement that even more going forward as she keeps winning. If this confidence boost is long term, I think she's going to win a lot more than she was already. I think, that's where I'm at. I appreciate that the surface spread of her slams is not fantastic. I don't think that matters massively, to be honest. I think she's managed to continue to kind of establish her CV all the way on. I don't think it would be a shock to imagine her winning on other surfaces. The question in the chat is Ash Barty a legend? Yes. So enough said. I think where Sabalenka would probably, if Sabalenka adds different surfaces to the slams, because she's won a Clay 1000, she's won Madrid, and I'm still going to hold to her being the favourite for Madrid for at least a good next couple of years or so.
Who's the bigger legend, Ash Barty or Arina Sabalenka?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Because the reason I'm posing this question is it does come back to the point that I'll come to when I answer the question about Sabalenka being a legend or not, is the surface. Because Ash Barty, just to let our audience know, has won 3 slams, but on 3 different surfaces. Sabalenka's won 4 across 2 surfaces. Oh, sorry, 1 surface.
Yeah, and Ash Barty ended her career with
a real mic
drop and a lot of unanswered questions of what else she could have done. I mean, Ash Barty in this era of tennis would have been a very interesting thing to watch, at least in the last few years. I think at this point she's turning 30 this year, so she'd be starting to come towards the end of her prime at this point. Had she continued, had she had the motivation to continue. So there's also this big what if with Ash Barty's legend. And I think that, for me, coupled with, as you say, the surface spread, would put her slightly higher. But I do think statistically Sabalenka may overtake that. And I think Sabalenka's not far overtaking that, I would say. I think give her another couple of years, see what else she does. I think if you're going to put Sabalenka as an all-time great, if you're going to put her in like the conversation with the best the game has ever seen, no, not yet, because there's that surface question. But I think, let's say that she's a great and a legend in the same way as an Ash Barty, or who else who's done well in the past, like blanking out, Kim Clijsters.
Yeah, Clijsters, Rybakina, of course, won 2 slams. You mentioned Azarenka as well. These sort of
so that's where I put it. It's like the level below before the people that you would immediately think of historically who were at the very, very top of the game.
To get into that group, does she need, 6, 7, 8 slams, or does she need just another surface, possibly?
I don't know about 6, 7, 8 slams. I think she just needs to win another couple. It doesn't matter what surface. I think the number there gets to a point where numbers matter more than where weight of numbers matters more than spread of surfaces. I think if she wins a couple of Wimbledons or like a couple of US Opens, it's not going to matter as much when you start getting past the sort of 6 mark.
Maybe, but I still think it matters because just think about that image of.
You'd never put her as greatest of all time in that scenario, right. But you put her as a great.
Yeah, I just think the surface matters. I think, so for example, in my answering my question about Ash Barty, I would put Ash Barty ahead of Arina right now. 3 slams across 3 surfaces in terms of greatness. And if this is such a subjective thing, and it'll depend on your opinion. I mean, also, even when we just talk about matches, did you watch the match? Helps, right? Did you live through it as well? Even just that opportunity. So we probably have different memories. And also, did your favorite player win? Where were you at the time? What was going on in your personal life? So there's all sorts of things when it comes to matches. And I think also in terms of players. But if I try and at least try to be as objective as I can, like Ash Barty's career is more complete than I think Sabalenka's. But I do think her winning this Sunshine Double is huge because it's a legendary achievement to do it, as you know how few players have done it. That it's another string to her bow. I just think that again with Iga Swiatek is now an all-time great in my opinion, not just because she's won 6 Grand Slams, but because she's done it across the 3 surfaces. having that US Open for her was huge for a long time, because it just meant that the conversation about her being a clay bot or whatever was never a non-starter from 2022 onwards. And also having the Sunshine Double and that unbeaten run as well. But yeah, I think that Sabalenka will be desperate to add a slam on another surface. I have no idea whether she'd rather win the French or Wimbledon. Often, again, those relationships depend on your upbringing and all sorts of memories that you have. But it's also kind of a crime against tennis that she's not won one of those other two, because although you might think of the story at the French Open being bigger in terms of the fact that she had a match point in that semi-final against Mukova, and do check out a video when I ask her a question about that, and how Serena's response is very amusing to losing that match, and how she won't try and let that happen again. But also, of course, the French Open final and the chances she had against Coco. But in a way, Wimbledon is, for me, is just as big a source of frustration, because 21 semi-final, 22 wasn't allowed to play, 23 semi-final, and I think she was up a set and a break on Jabeur. Well, she was certainly in charge of that match, it felt, but Jabeur wrestled it back. 24 injury, gets injured at Berlin, and that puts her out of the US of Wimbledon. And we saw how she came back from that injury and tore it up across North America, perhaps because that injury gave her a layoff. Obviously, she couldn't play the Olympics as well. And 25, again, big chances to beat Anisimova in an epic encounter that could easily have gone either way. So certainly both of those tournaments, she must be devastated if she finishes her career without winning at least one of those two.
Yeah, I think she would be anyway, regardless of whether she was trying to be a great player or not. I think she wants to win as much as she can and win Grand Slams and win big trophies. And Wimbledon is obviously one. Yeah, I kind of assess the same thing. My assessment's the same as yours. I just come to a slightly different conclusion. I rate Arena higher. I rate Arena's achievements higher
than Ash Barty's, for example.
Similar.
Okay.
Okay. I was going to ask you this. Cool. How do you rate? Because we've got because we're trying to assess players quite close to their careers, in the middle of their careers, which is really hard. It's easy to assess someone who's a bit further away. So, how would you assess the career of someone like a Kim Clijsters, who also has 4 Grand Slams on hard courts? I know what I would think, which is
compared to Sabalenka, for example.
If you want to compare it to Sabalenka, or just
I think it's a really good comparison with 4 slams. Well, can you just reel off the 4 slams she has in terms of location, etc.?
2005 US Open, 2009 US Open, 2010 US Open, 2011 Australian Open.
Got it. So very similar.
French and lost to Capriati in a ridiculous third set that went to like 12-10 or something like that.
Oh, wow. Yeah, she's got 2 French Open runners up. Actually, such a similar career to Arena's in that she's got a couple of Wimbledon semis in there, really good across all surfaces, a couple of French Open finals and near misses there, including that third set, as you mentioned, with Clijsters. With Capriati, was it? Did you say?
Capriati, yeah.
So I think it's just a great comparison. For whatever reason, maybe because I'm living through this era in a bigger way because of this channel and all sorts of things. But I feel as though, I guess if you're a Kim Clijsters fan, you disagree with this, and that's totally fine. But I feel as though Sabalenka's career has probably put her on just a marginally above Kim Clijsters. But it's almost identical. It's almost identical. Near misses at the French and Wimbledon, and 4 slams across the other 4 halves.
And Clijsters is a Sunshine Doubler as well.
The Sunshine Doubler as well. Exactly. What an incredible parallel these two have. I almost feel as though, maybe you just have to start racking up, other titles that they won, 1000s and stuff like that to maybe split them. But even then, you would then start maybe comparing eras. And I know people that certainly go on about the era of Clijsters, saying that this was a better era. Look at the top 10. I actually think that the era right now is incredibly competitive. Ash Barty's retirement changes the conversation a little bit. Where would that have gone if she'd stayed? I felt going in as I began my answer, but feelings can be deceptive, that I would lean Sabalenka. But by virtue of the fact that I had to be reminded of where she won her slams also tells you that I didn't live through the Clijsters period, if you like, in terms of I was alive and I was into tennis. I went to my first Wimbledon, for example, in 2003. But yeah, I feel as though I'm living through this era in a bigger way. And Sabalenka on a hard court just feels, when she brings it, unbeatable.
Yeah.
So that's where I lean, but there's all sorts of biases that I highlight. But what I would say, one final thing though, is maybe to reiterate, yeah, I would put Ash Barty on a slightly bigger level, because I remember, for example, on the men's side, the number. Okay, Sampras never won a French Open and didn't really come close. I think he might have made one semi, but the fact that he'd won 14, puts him possibly as the greatest of all time at that point, until obviously Federer comes along and so on and so forth. But then you also had the Agassi one, where I think Agassi won 8 slams, maybe, but across all 4 surfaces. And I get the argument: whose career would you rather have, to do a career slam or to win? I think most people would land on by virtue of the numbers. But if you're offering me 3 in the case of Ash Barty across all 3 surfaces, or 4 just on the hard courts, I would lean Barty in that legendary status.
Yeah. And I think that's the perfect comparison. That is the perfect comparison, because fundamentally they're great for different reasons, Sampras and Agassi. Sampras has the numbers, Agassi has the variety, kind of the individual achievements.
But the bigger the gap grows, when it's like when you've won, let's say Sabalenka wins 10 hard court slams, then it's just such a phenomenal number. And the hard courts dominate 9 months of the tennis season, pretty much 8 months, 9 months. So
pretty much, yeah. And I think that for me will be like, it doesn't matter whether that's the point we're going to get to. So, and that's why it doesn't stop me from putting Sabalenka in that great category at all. And I think the Clijsters comparison, I think the thing to also remember is Clijsters never finished year-end number 1. She got to number 1, but she didn't hold it for possibly that long, really. A few weeks. Sabalenka's held it for 2 years, more or less, or a year, 18 months, really, on and off.
20 weeks in total for Kim Clijsters at number 1.
Yeah, 20 weeks on and off.
Sabalenka must be over 100.
Scattered across.
She had a few weeks, didn't she, in 2023, maybe?
She did, yeah, because Iga snatched it from her right at the end.
So she got 70 weeks at number 1 at the end of last year. And how many weeks are we into this year? Maybe 12. So yeah, she's not over 100 yet, but she's pushing 100.
She'll probably get there, because she's got that big gap to Rybakina at the moment. Yeah,
so I don't think she'll be knocked off until at least Wimbledon, I wouldn't have thought.
I think even the US Open potentially.
Probably, yeah. Probably. I'm just saying that if she has a rough clay court season and loses the French Open final points and the Madrid points, for example, and Rybakina wins a couple of titles and wins Wimbledon, so but yeah, realistically, I think you're right. I don't see any time soon. So I think she's easily going to go past that 100 mark.
Yeah. So yeah, for me, still, I think we're both saying that she's great, but how much? I think we're probably ranking her similar levels, but I'd probably put her slightly higher. The Barty comparison is interesting. I think I would also agree with you. I'd put Barty above, but maybe I put Barty above other players that you wouldn't. So
maybe.
Yeah, that's where we're at. So, lots of speculation there. The WTA moves on, as we do here. And as the sun is moving on from Germany.
One more thing. Yeah, I know the sun's gone down. Although at least we've got daylight saving. But yeah, just one more thing, Nick, is talking of moving on. Something that we did find out today was that the WTA finals will be moving off to Saudi Arabia, per Ben Rothenberg and an article that he has on his website or his Substack account. So yeah, from Riyadh. Actually, as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh wow, that feels like a big story to me, because it wasn't something on the. Well, I mean, who knows what the political situation will be like in the Middle East in 6 months from now. It might not even take place this year if we're still in the same state of affairs that we're in right now. But yeah, he teases us, doesn't he, by saying, I'm not going to tell you where, but subscribe to my Substack and you can find out. And that's fair enough. But I think he does mention North America. I've seen some responses on social media that he has responded to as well by, but women's tennis is more popular in Europe than it is in North America. Don't know how factual that is, but yeah, breaking-ish news. It was a few hours ago, which in tennis actually is a lifetime almost.
Yeah, I'll forever keep campaigning for. I will keep campaigning for Prague to have the WTA finals, but North America will do.
Can alternate it.
Alternate it, yeah. But with I think I'm not massively surprised. Riyadh's not really drawn much of a crowd. Obviously had the money for it, but yeah, maybe the situation in the Middle East was getting too difficult to send tennis players there. They're kind of preempting potentially not being able to go. Carson's saying it might be Charlotte, although I don't know if it's a joke or not because I know he's from around there.
Okay. Yeah, maybe.
But with this, I think you're more likely to get a good crowd if you market it right, bring some atmosphere, certainly be easy enough for everyone to get to, wouldn't have the controversy surrounding it that Riyadh did. From a PR perspective and promoting the event, probably the better choice, even if maybe it might not be as glitzy as they could have got. Oh no, it's not a joke. Cool.
It seemed pretty real. Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I was a little bit more surprised than you, because I could see the relationship between Saudi and the WTA growing in terms of sponsorships and investments. So, and I did see that there was a lot of people attending last year, but I don't know what was going on there, whether people were getting free tickets or even being brought over somehow, because I saw all sorts of Polish fans, for example, and all sorts that I hadn't seen in the previous years or the previous year in Saudi. But yeah, no, I was surprised. But yeah, I'm fine with it not being there, put it that way. Would you rather have, I know both of us want to get on because I've got I've got a saucepan of water that's about to be boiled. In fact, I even boiled some spaghetti during that final on Saturday night, kind of live on air. And I had to, as Arena, sorry, Coco was 7 to stay in the match. I ran off because I said, look, I've got to stop this right now because otherwise my pass is going to be overcooked. There's nothing worse than that. But would you rather have Barbie K or Naomi Osaka's Grand Slam career?
Now, I think I know what you're talking about here. And actually, Osaka's a good comparison to Sabalenka as well. 4 Grand Slams all on hard court.
2 Grand Slams here.
Just to be clear, by the way, I would prefer I'm favouring Sabalenka over Osaka because Sabalenka's been able to sustain consistency far better than Osaka ever did.
True. Grand number one, what weeks are number one, and also the Sunshine Double. But yeah,
Sunshine Double, way more titles. Osaka's kind of been hot and cold out of career. Sabalenka's been solid top 10 for a while.
Osaka at the other 2 slams, big style. French Open and Wimbledon.
So if you're talking slam count, Osaka.
I would go for
about where she's going to rank in the everything in terms of like what are the great players. Osaka. If you're going to talk about specific Grand Slams, I'm going to get pedantic here.
Oh, because you romanticize more over RG and Wimbledon probably.
I would rather win Roland Garros and Wimbledon over a US Open and Australian Open. If I had to pick, you're only allowed to have 2 at the Slams. Those are the 2 I pick.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to take the in a different way, that's how I'm going to go with it.
Yeah. But this is where the gap widens too far for me. Naomi has 4 Grand Slams, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
2 Australians, 2 USs.
Yeah, exactly. So, but this is where the gap widens too much. So I mentioned Barty over Sabalenka for the 3 surfaces as well. Whereas suddenly now we're talking about 2 surfaces and 2 Grand Slams as opposed to 4. So no, I'm going Osaka. And Osaka as well, for spells of her career, was probably the best player in the world during certain weeks or whatever, certain months. And that's how it panned out. And the way she won some of those slams was incredible. I mean, who could forget that semi-final day in the COVID? I think it was the COVID US Open, those 2 semi-finals that were played that day. And then her winning that tournament felt pretty special. So, yeah. Barbie K, unbelievable. But yeah, those 2, yeah. But I just think that the gap widens a bit more, whereas Ash Barty 3 surfaces, oh boy.
Yeah. I think I would definitely put Barty ahead of Osaka in terms of achievements at the moment. Let's see if Osaka wins a 5th one. That'll shut me up.
Yeah.
But yeah, so.
It won't shut you up, Nick. There'll be more. It might shut up this argument, but there'll be another 1,000 arguments for
there'll be something else to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, Charleston, which I know one of the people in the chat was also very excited about. this is where you go to see all the American women, apart from Coco Gauff, doing their thing. You've got
What else is going on this week? Charleston,
Bogota.
Bogota. But is that a WTA 125 or
250?
Okay. Is that different, or has it always been a 250?
It's always been a 250.
Oh, okay. Sorry, people. Sorry, Bogota.
Yeah, always been a 250. Like Camila Osorio won it last year. It's usually been won by either Camila Osorio or Tatiana Maria. It's one of those. It's a mini golden swing, as it were, for the WTA. But yeah, so if you want to talk about Bogota, then yeah, currently the seeds there: Marie Buzkova is the top seed, Jessica Buzesh-Monera is the second, Camila Osorio is the third, Tatiana Maria is the fourth. You've got Fran Jones playing for the Brits. Not loads of big names. Charleston for me is where it's at. For me, that's what I'm really watching. You've got Pegula, the top seed, only top 10 player taking part, but you do have players like Alexandrova, Bencic, Jovic. Okay, looks like Anna Samova was going to play and she's pulled out. Anna Samova was.
Yes, that happened yesterday, maybe.
Yeah. That's
give me who's your player that you're sort of keen to keep an eye on in Charleston?
Oh, well, there's a few. I'd say on a wild card level, Hailey Baptiste, because she's now got herself to be seeded for Charleston. So her rise up the rankings has been massively talked about, but she's now 33rd on the cusp of being seeded for slams, and she's got herself seeded for this tournament at 15. So I think she's got a good chance of going pretty deep, especially when looking at her draw. Like Elise Mertens looks like is probably the main problem she's got. She can upset Alexandra. If Baptiste upsets Alexandrova, then Mertens is someone that with sheer consistency could win, but I could also see Baptiste doing quite well. Bencic, someone who's come very close. I think she has won this tournament before, actually. Is very comfortable here. I think she should do well. I'm just to see if Madison Keys can pick up things from her side and whether she can improve, like whether she can turn something on this year, because again, she should like it. But it's hard to look past Jessica Pegula with all the winning she's done as defending champion. Really, I think she's going to come in the red hot favourite. And if you think about, she kind of scrapped her way to a Charleston title. I could see her being a bit more comfortable. She's got Yulia Putintseva as her opening match. Putintseva's beaten Liu Sun today already. And she'll have a few tricky players like Cocciaretto potentially, Fernandez and Schneider in her section. Semi-final potentially against, semi-final could be all right because it's Jovic, Kenin, Sakkari, and Kalinskaya who are the seeds. But yeah, I'm very confident about potentially putting Pegula in the final, then she'd be the favourite. The most blockbuster you could get was potentially Pegula Bencic. That could be a lot of fun. Now there's no Anna Samova in it. But hard to look past Jessica Pegula as the on-paper favourite. Watch out for Belinda Bencic as the close second. And I would say your wild card, watch out, just keep an eye on Hailey Baptiste.
All right, I've got three players as well. I'm keen to see Jovic is playing, right?
Yes, she is.
Yeah, I'm keen to see how she plays on the clay. But there's two other players as well that I think will be, for very different reasons, keen for this clay court season to get underway. Leylah Fernandez, because I think that she's probably in need of a change, a bit like Paulini that I highlighted as well. I think in terms of her form after the North American swing, I think she'll be keen for that. And she's had some really, really good results on the clay. Obviously, a French Open quarterfinalist, I think, in the past. And the other one is a sort of a seasoned player as well. I mean, Leylah Fernandez is young, but she's seasoned in terms of the fact that she's been on the tour, made a Grand Slam final over the last 4 or 5 years. The other player is Maria Sakkari. I think not the same as Leylah Fernandez, because she has shown some good spurts. Such as the semi-final run that she had before losing to Mukova in the Middle East at that WTA 1000 a few weeks ago. So in a way, I think it's like, there is still a really good tennis player there. There is someone who can have a good week, etc., etc. So maybe Sakkari can make the final, for example. Maybe.
I think Sakkari, I did look at Sakkari and go, let's see, like this is the kind of conditions she would really, really like, kind of that sort of halfway between proper clay and hard. And with a couple of the results that she's had this year, I think, if she peaks here, she's going to be dangerous. So I like what you're spotting there, John, similar with Fernandez. But yeah, so Charleston, lot to look forward to. always a special place in my heart, not just because it looks like great, but also it's the first tour that we ever covered on WTA Weekly.
Was it? Yeah.
Yeah. Our first episode was reviewing Charleston in 2023. So yeah, that's a lot of fun. So yeah, clay season is upon us, and I think we're all looking forward to it. And John, the Rafa Nadal fan, and is all.
It's also European. Listen, super biased European summer. Clocks changed on Saturday night, I think it was, which meant I lost an hour's sleep before this half marathon, which is also the reason why I ran it so slowly. But no, but it's honestly, the clock's changing and the season is, and I know there'll be plenty of people out there that prefer the grass court season or the hard court season, but hard court season is very long, so you've got it. No worries, tick. And I do love that spell post Wimbledon, the North American swing, for example, in particular. But yeah, time zone is very as friendly as it's going to get, and it's summertime, people. It's summertime for us, anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be. We're coming into hot weather, beautiful sunshine, maybe even some sea views, depending on where you're going.
Barbecues in the evening, evening jogs are in the nice weather, and
all day tennis for us Europeans.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, we get it good as well. We know we lament that Australian thing, but they only get it for like 4 to 6 weeks, 4 or 5 weeks, and we get it the rest of the year. I mean, not quite the rest of the year, because but even Miami is a big shift for us compared to the time zone of Indian Wells, for example.
So yeah, lots to look forward to. We're not quite there yet, at least from a WTA perspective, because Charleston and Bogota are still the wrong time zone for us Europeans. But
it's so close now, Stuttgart. So
close. If you want proper time zone chat, then good news. Bucharest and Marrakesh are playing on the ATP, and you can probably see some previews of that when we have ATP Weekly starting in about an hour and a half.
Something like that, yeah.
If you want to get reaction to Sinner's Sunshine Double and some more legend chat, that's where you head to. So go and have some food, come back, and whether it's lunch or dinner, and come and watch it on ATP Weekly for us to wrap up the Sunshine Double there for the men and Yannick Sinner's achievements. So if you want to enjoy that, come and join that. For WTA Weekly, we will be back to wrap up all things Charleston. It'll probably be similar sort of thing of a Monday evening. Charleston and Bogota, and start looking forward to, it'll be Billie Jean King Cup preview.
Oh, yeah.
Then that'll be that week. But yeah, let's see what stories come out of this sort of early clay season for the WTA. And we'll be there to talk about it. I'll see you then. In the meantime, take care and keep talking tennis.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.